actually not.
Oh, yeah.
What is your address?
8 Sunset Drive.
8?
Yeah. McDonald.
Thank you. All right, the board met in executive session to discuss student matters and personnel sheets, and safety. Citizens speak. I don't have anybody on the forum tonight, so we'll move on. Recognition, Michael?
Yeah, for recognition, we have the Canon-McMillan Middle School's Music in the Parks adjudication. It took place on Saturday, May 7th, and the symphonic band performed at Norwin High School for collegiate music educators, and they were evaluated. They received first place with a superior rating. The symphonic band also won the top overall band award and the Esprit de Corps award, which is given to the group that exhibits pride, spirit, enthusiasm, camaraderie, and unity.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 3.2, we have a presentation from Aaron DeLong on the Eagle Scout project.
Hi, I'm Erin DeLong, and I'm a junior at the high school.
Speak up a little louder.
Okay.
Don't be afraid.
I'm Erin DeLong, and I'm a junior at the high school, and I'm here to speak to you about my Eagle Scout project. I have packets to pass out to you so you can see everything.
Sure.
Just stand on this.
My Eagle project is a interactive mural that the preschool students at the high school will be able to use for their large motor activities in the back courtyard, because I've noticed that when I'm actually in the class, when we go out to play, they just play in the play area. They don't have room for a playground or anything, so I thought that interactive mural might be a good way to incorporate something into the area where they could use it and they could play games and things like that with it, but it wouldn't take up very much space. And then in the packet that you have, it includes all the materials and things that I'll be using, and then also I'm going to get materials from donations from hardware stores and other places like that. And that's pretty much it.
If I could just add just a little bit more, we envision this being a legacy project too, where Aaron is starting this off, and that every 3 or 4 years, another student is gonna be able to come through, and we're gonna have them come up with a new design and a new mural so the paint never fades. This is something we're gonna continue through the early childhood program, and we're gonna have a sign saying she was the first one and kind of started in honor of Aaron and continue it in the future. So.
I'd like to share too that Aaron, you mentioned something about the hardware store and donations, and obviously there are supplies and materials.
Yes.
She's been speaking very closely with our facilities director, Jordan Meyer, and he's in tune with, what's being used and just making sure that, it's not just something sloppy that's going to fall apart after she leaves, right? Okay, so good.
Wonderful. Very good. Thank you very much. All right, next we have an esports presentation from Mr. Crowley.
So I'd just like to introduce everyone that's here from our esports. You guys have been hearing a lot about esports the past few months. We've been having some informal gatherings at the high school, and we've had anywhere from 35 to 60 plus students there for the different tournaments we've been having to try to grow the program, get word out about it. This is Mr. Kobanski. He's one of our new teachers this year. He teaches math. He's helping lead the initiative. We have Miss Molly Nuri, a new school counselor this year, who's also helping lead the initiative. Mr. Michael Sealhurst, one of our special education teachers. And then we have Bodie Dagan. He must have pulled the short straw. He was here representing the students. So we have a lot of facts, a lot of details we want to share with you about this program. We're really excited though, and I know also on the agenda tonight, if with your approval, would be a grant from Range Resources of $5,000 to help us get this program started as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sealhurst, Ms. Nuri, and Mr. Klebanski, and then Bodie's going to be talking real quick. So.
Well, hi everybody. Just giving you kind of the overview of what we've been working on. And esports at CM, super exciting stuff. We started up back in February, March, talking about it and getting some kid interest. I'm not going to talk a whole lot on that's not my thing, but I've been helping out with it and just excited. I was going to actually let Bodie take over for a little bit because he's our student, one of our big student leaders. He's been up there organizing tournaments, helping get things. He put a lot of work into this too, so I'm turn it over to Bodie.
All right.
You be in charge.
Hi everyone, my name's Bodie Dagan, and as he said, I'm the I've been helping out a lot with the esports. So we're just gonna give you some information about it and some facts. So if you want to flip this slide. So what is esports? So esports is obviously just Canon-McMillan specific. It's a league where we're gonna have people from all across the school, anyone that wants to join, and we would play any kind of games. We've stuck to mostly like school appropriate, because we don't want to do. We haven't set the initiative to any violent games, I would say, yet. But we've just been focusing on some
It's gonna stay school appropriate.
It's
Yes, always school
yes,
appropriate.
we're gonna keep it school appropriate, and it's just about getting people together. It's an opportunity for a lot of student leadership, a lot of student coordination. Like as you can tell, I'm right here talking. I would say, but it's gonna give a lot of the students an opportunity to bond with other students, and some of them to coordinate some of the events. You can flip the slide. So here's our mission statement. It basically sums up what I just said. It's going to open the door for people to pursue careers and kind of gain those leadership skills that they might not be able to gain somewhere else. I think that's good for that side. So here's some facts where Miss Neri is going to present to you guys.
So, in case you haven't heard, the esports industry is booming in the last couple of years. As of today, it is over a $1 billion industry, and that includes advertisements, careers, players, scholarships, profit, all of it. So, in 2020, something I really love is that colleges are starting to hop on board, just like us. About 200 colleges started offering scholarships for esports, so players themselves, just like athletic players, can prove their skills, demonstrate their abilities, and then receive tuition for it. So I just think that that's really neat. The lists are growing more and more, so it's giving our kids who might not have other incentives to look forward to college after high school another opportunity to.
I have a question about that. Are they providing the opportunity for the name, image, and likeness type of money that's being provided to athletes in college?
So I really think that we're still on the ground level of it. From all the research I've read so far, it more so aligns with academic scholarships. I honestly foresee it going that direction at some point, because this one day could become a potential sport at our school, more competitive, and I imagine it will get there because especially all the online streaming platforms for video games right now, there's so much potential to that. Yeah.
It's gonna get to that point. I just had a conversation with the head coach at WVU. They got the #1 Madden player in the world, so he's going to WVU for free to play Madden. And you get on Twitch and things like that. It's not only kids playing video games now; it's kids watching kids play video games, and the viewers from that is where the money comes from. So it's a huge industry. And at Trinity, this is year 2 for it. They have 50 kids after school that hang out in there and play, and they're kids that don't do anything else. So it gives them a niche. So it's a wonderful program. It's not just playing video games.
It's the 3rd most watched sporting event in the world when they have the World Championships. There's a Super Bowl, the World Cup, and then esports.
Not cornhole or
No.
Something that I thought was important to note there is when I was doing some research, I found that about 90% of the scholarships for esports are going to young men right now. So I just wanted to say that I think a part of my personal mission with this is to encourage young women also to join. If you can attend any of our events ever, I just think it's so neat from a counselor's perspective. We've already said it gives these kids a niche. I see populations of every type represented at these events. You have the kids who are athletes, you have the kids who like to do theater, you have the kids that really don't have any other reason to be invested in after school activities, and they show up for it, and they're all finding the common ground within the video games. They didn't even know they all played together, and you have girls that are showing up as well. And I just think that that's so important because we've already found connections between young students who play video games and STEM related careers in the future, and especially young females. So I think it's so important to make sure they're represented in this as well.
From the special ed perspective, already we have students from the emotional
Super Smash Brothers character?
Mine? Probably Pikachu. If we're getting specific.
And just going off of that really quickly, I did also find out that one of those students, Mr. Stillhorst just mentioned, the esports is this is his 4th year at the high school. The esports is the very first extracurricular activity the student has ever shown interest in. Yeah, their mom reached out to our life skills teacher and passed that along to me. So I really think that's just a testament to what this is all about.
He asks the teacher every day when our next event is.
Yeah. And he did really well. In the last tournament, he made it to, it might have been the semifinals, maybe, I think. Yeah. You know, so it really is just a cool chance for every kid to come together. And going off of that, really, I just also wanted you to be aware that it's more than just playing video games. So we really are trying to open this up because it is a whole industry. There are so many roles involved in that. So you do have kids that are playing video games. We have one student, she's a young girl who, she doesn't play video games, but she's very artistic, and she's taken, you'll see some of her drawings actually in some pictures later. She started to take on the artsy role of our club. She helped create our logo. She is creating different characters and stuff. So we have kids who are into art who are helping out. We eventually could have kids that could be commentating on the games, right? And that could be developing their public speaking skills if they want to go into that after high school. We have actual kids who could be more comfortable managing and coaching versus actually playing, right? And so in that sense, you're giving these kids another role. Coordinating, Odie is so humble, but if we could explain to you how well he directed our last tournament, it was our craziest and largest one yet, and it was fluid and changing at all times, and he really stepped up and above and beyond. And that last tournament was really student run. You know, the kids, they set up the equipment, they play, they manage the brackets, they figure out, well, what can work best, what can go most efficiently, can we have how many TVs can we have playing at one time, and then they help clean it all up. So it really is a student-led and run organization, which just adds to it. Yeah.
Was the tournament at the high school?
It was, and we have pictures later. Yeah.
Keep going. Roll.
Yeah. So this very quickly, I just also wanted you to get a scope of all of the different outcomes for students that are interested in esports, right? So I know it's very small, but essentially you have all these different career ranges from the entertainment industry to actual performance, to media, events organization, technology, IT, video game developers, communication, sales, marketing. It just really is a serious industry now, and I think what we want to get across is that these kids are having fun, but they really are also developing opportunities for their future.
Yep. And these are just a couple of pictures. So this was our interest meeting, and this is in the lower LGI room. We had, I did a quick head count. There's 90 kids that came out for esports, which I think is huge. One of the bigger clubs, and just, you get a big, diverse group of people. Everybody likes video games, not everybody, but most kids like video games in some way, shape, or form, and just that they're interested in this. I think it's really cool. Actually, the flyer was designed by one of our student leadership kids. Hayden made that, and I think that's awesome too. You get, tech skills building that kind of stuff. But
I think one of the coolest things about that meeting was we had kids thanking us for organizing the meeting, thanking us for wanting to do esports. It's something they've wanted to do for a while. They actually gave us a standing ovation during their meeting, which is unheard of. So I think that speaks a lot about how valuable this would be to our student body.
You just keep going. There's just some different pictures. It's just showing all the kids. Actually, this was also a student-led meeting because I really don't like to talk a lot and lead meetings. So who was up there? Layton, Hayden, Mackenzie was leading the meeting, and they talked a lot. Ken was up there too. But it was cool. Yeah, we had a lot of people. We did breakout sessions. The kids led the breakout sessions because there's a bunch of different games in esports. Obviously, it's not just one game. It's kind of like a track thing where you've got different events. So it's different games. So kind of let different students run point on which game they're kind of most interested in. It was cool. You keep going through some pictures here. We played a little bit of games afterwards. We set up the VRs. The kids are super into that.
Virtual reality.
There's Grace in that picture, so we got you in there. It was hype. There was a lot of kids out there. They all gather on the TVs.
That top left is actually me beating all those kids in Mario Kart.
Yep.
I was very proud of that one moment.
We keep going. And then, so we got some equipment, kind of little head start. We got a few different I think we have 5 Nintendo Switches and some games to set up, which is what we've been using to sort of play our games just before we get a full thing going. But the kids set up all the consoles and everything. They're managing the equipment, which is a super cool skill. And then we had a Smash Brothers tournament. We had 29 people come out for Super Smash Brothers, which is just a game a lot of people like. It was pretty hype. We did a 2-day bracket. It was fun. This was the Mario Kart tournament we just did last Wednesday, I think, or 2 Wednesdays ago. But keep going to this one. You see, it kind of coincided a little with the volleyball players, so they were all out there, and that turned into like a huge thing. It was a spectator sport. You go ahead. It was. Keep going. I think there's a video here at the end. Can you play this? Just listen. This was after we quieted the crowd down because it was insane. You should have heard the building.
And they were more concerned with winning the video game match than the section championship they won later that night. So
yeah, and yeah, that's. I think it's just. Yeah.
So overall, yeah, the students are really engaged.
There's one more slide if you can get to it, but not a big deal. If not, just ideas for the future. I think this club's going to grow. They're just getting started off. We haven't actually we're not a club or anything yet, just interest. People are out there. We got the kids. There's opportunities. I'm excited for the future with esports. I think it's going to be great for Canon-Mac and for the students of Canon-Mac. I think they're really going to benefit from it.
And I know you see the WPIL up there. There's 26 states in the United States right now that recognize this as an official sport. Mm-hmm. So kind of going where you're going with the national recognition, it's going to be there. It's just a matter of time before all 50 states recognize it and it becomes a sport that's performed nationally. Trinity, when they rolled out the program, they started as a club. Now they have curriculum offerings. So we'll be working with Mrs. Laney next school year to see are there any courses we want to roll out for the following school year related to this as well. So we're excited for what the future holds with this program.
Are you recruiting at all? Doing a lot of recruiting.
We've only had a few posters, and they come in.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to recruit.
Oh, you want to get in there?
Yeah.
Certainly.
We'll take you. We'll take you on board.
Yep.
So I want to thank the curriculum ladies that met last month, and I shared with them and asked, can we kind of move forward? And they all nodded, sure, let's try. And maybe it was 2 months ago, and from there we met with students, and it just kind of continued to evolve. We've even gone down to visit Waynesburg University's esports arena, state-of-the-art esports arena, and there's, so you'll be hopefully voting positively to make this student activity into a real club this month, and then also to vote to approve the range grant that Mr. Crowley wrote to Range, and we have convinced Range why it is that we'd like a little bit of seed money and $5,000 there. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job.
All right, moving on to our administrative reports. Tim?
All right, so mine's gonna be short tonight. I just wanted to give a brief staffing update on where we're at. We're in the spring season, moving into summer. This is a busy time for school district HR departments and administrations. There's a lot of people leaving and coming in. So tonight, in one form or another, you have 10 resignations or retirements that we're asking you to approve and looking for backfills on. Right, so we have 4 professional resignations, 1 administrative resignation, 2 transportation retirements, 2 resignations from transportation, a secretarial retirement, and we're interviewing for key positions for building secretary and transportation secretary, as well as an accounts payable clerk. So it's just that time of year. A lot of posting goes on, a lot of scheduling and interviewing, but we know that ahead of time. We gear up for that every year, and we'll probably have some more specifics to give you at the June board meeting, but that time of year is starting to ramp up. So keeping it brief, and that's what I've got for tonight.
All right, thank you, Tim. Scott?
So last week, Grace and I, as federal programs coordinators, had our monitoring. And it's the first monitoring that we had, and Michael participated. And of course, you guys can obviously jump in and share any your feedback you have, but overall, I was extremely pleased. The monitor was very complimentary of what we had provided in advance to the monitoring. I think the weeks of planning and preparation paid off. He sort of, and you may have a different way to describe it, but he it was sort of like, it was not too much, not enough, but just right. And he moved through the monitoring tool rather quickly, and it has to go from him to Harrisburg, but as it stands right now, we have no findings. So that's a good thing.
I'd love to weigh in on, because as Scott mentioned, this person was very formal, as they should be. It's a very formal process. And I think we all wondered, what's he going to tell us? What are we going to have to do, corrective action wise? It's almost never the case that you don't have something. That's their job, to find something to tell you what to do, right? To fix something. And right out of the gate, this is my third monitoring, by the way, in title programs. And right out of the gate, this guy said, look, I don't normally share this, but I've been assigned to 12 school districts to do this, and you are the only one who was so complete and thorough with all the information you shared with me. Congratulations. That's how the meeting started. So it was just really good downhill from there, and commendable ratings on all aspects of the program. So kudos to you for running the show as you did. And Mrs. Tamichek joined us as well. Thanks.
On the agenda, you'll see an item later down through called mini grants, and I figured I'd just talk briefly about it for a moment, because many of you may be like, what's a mini grant? So mini grant program is something that's facilitated through my office, and we put out an invitation for teachers to apply. It's $800 if they're selected, and it's a nice little way to encourage teachers to maybe take a risk, try something new, put out take an idea that they had and, put it into action. So the winners are on the agenda for approval, and, very pleased. Again, we always get a nice mix of ideas with the mini grant applications. And the last thing I wanted to just mention is that we've seen an increase in some of our COVID-19 cases. The other day, we were all here for an administrative meeting. Many of us sit on the pandemic team, and you're to review that health and safety plan every 6 months. So as we were here, there's been some discussion. So I just wanted to share with you that we reviewed the plan, and given our current cases and the current environment, we have no recommendations to change our current plan, and we'll revisit that again sooner if necessary, if not within 6 months.
Any questions for Scott? All right, let's move on to Morgan.
So there's something that was added to the agenda recently called Scores that we create, and it's for programs where you can create newsletters. So it's for a program where you can create newsletters, and I'd like to create a district-wide
Very good.
Thank you, Morgan. All right, Joni.
So I'm passing two documents, but while they're being passed, I'll do two quick items in between. Just an audit update, the committee, we had a budget finance committee meeting last week, I updated the committee that 2 of my 3 audits are now complete. We received final notices from the Department of Education on both the food service and the procurement audit, and we got sign off, everything's good to go. The only audit I now have outstanding is the Auditor General audit, and I'll continue to give you updates. I completed the 3rd request for information and just waiting to hear back. Hopefully soon will be completed. The second item, while this is being passed, is just a budget timeline update. June 14th will be a lengthy budget and finance meeting. We'll have both final budget information presented at that time, as well as our financial team that the board has in place when we do any bond issues or any big projects. They'll be to introduce that team to the committee that hasn't met them and to start talking about what it would look like, both in terms of how much it would cost to build a new building and what our borrowing ceiling is. We do have limits on what we're able to borrow, and we've borrowed a lot the last couple of years, so that will be what's discussed there. So that's gonna be a big meeting. And then June 22nd at the agenda meeting, I will, in a summarized version, go over the final budget presentation and share some summary information from that budget finance committee. And then I'll have a recommendation, administrative recommendation for a final budget on the 29th of June. So those are my 2 quick items. In the committee, I talked and shared our 5-year plan using the proposed final budget. It's a 80-plus page document that I've shared with all the board members. It will be available both in Word docs and on the district finance page for anyone in the public, or if anyone wants to share that, it will be available. From the budget and finance committee meeting, I changed 2 slides just to update the committee. Slide 57 had an error on it, I corrected it, and I added a slide 65 after 64 because the question that Pete had asked as chair of the committee is why we were in fund balance limits, did it look like we were outside of the legal limitations? And the reason is I'm new to the software, and I put a slide in that had expenses versus revenues, and so it changed where our numbers fell on the bar graph. So what I did is I added a new slide and showed you the one that our auditors use to make sure that we're in compliance, and we indeed are on that slide. But what I gave you this evening is just a 1-page, I took 80 pages and put it down to 1 page of what our 5-year forecast looks like with some key information. I shared with the committee, and it's in the larger document, that I made some assumptions. I assumed a 3% increase in assessed value, which has been what we've been trending, looking at our actuals. I assumed a 1% millage increase. That does not include any new construction projects. It's just as it is existing up through now. So, and the key to that long-range plan, it's like on slide 5, is it's a projection. It's not a prediction. It's a projection, taking data, making some assumptions, and seeing where we go. Things will change along the way. I presented that to the committee, and literally the next day I got homestead farmstead numbers that haven't changed since that act was enacted. For the first time ever, they put more money into homestead farmstead, so already one of my assumptions is a little bit off on there. So it's a guide. I'll update it annually, so that hopefully we refine it as we focus our visions and our goals and our missions, that I capture that in the 5-year plan. So it's just something, this was the first year that I really unveiled it, and I'll continue to do so. But this is just it in a snapshot. It does show us at the bottom in the bar graph that with that 3% assessed value increase and the expenses, salary and benefits and promises that we have already made, and that 1% increase, it shows that ultimately we will become upside down. So we'll have to do something to remedy that. There's a couple ways you can remedy that. You could curb expenses, you could raise revenues, you could use one-time expenses out of fund balance, but it shows you that if we continue at the pace we're going, we will become the opposite. Our expenses will outweigh our revenues, and that's the biggest takeaway, and that using the assumptions that I used in the data that we have. So I don't want to take a ton of time because I've shared it in great detail in committee. I gave it to all of you in advance, and it'll be on the website, but if there's any questions about the bigger document, that is how I got to the one page, just let me know. The other item appears on the agenda, and I wanted to take a few minutes. The attachment wasn't ready for you today. The meeting with our insurance providers was actually this afternoon at 1 o'clock, and then there was a revision that needed to be made, and I didn't get it till 3, so it was too late to get it in. It will be added for both you, the attachment for both you and the public next week, but this is a working session, so I gave you a copy of it, and I just wanted to go through it, and I'm definitely not gonna read it to you, but I wanna point some things out so that when you do read it, in preparation for your decision next week, that you have some information that's not written in this letter from our insurance agent to you. The first is, the new middle school is not included in any of this insurance coverage, because we have a plan called OSIP. It's an owner's, insurance plan that we purchase when we, do a construction project. It's actually a lot of money, $1 million, but it provides insurance us through the duration of the project. So what will happen once the new middle school opens, we'll do an adjustment to our policy mid-year and add it on. But I wanted to just point that out because you wouldn't be able to surmise that from this. Our broker, Robert Simonin Agency, has been our broker for quite some time. Every so many years, the board will select a broker, and he is our broker of record now. He goes out and he does RFPs for the two big policies, which is, our property casualty, the general liability, the school directors, the umbrella. That's usually one company handles that, and then workers' comp is the other. And he comes, meets with me and some other administrators, and I often the high school has, do they use drones? Do they have a daycare? There's a whole list of questionnaire questions that I have to answer, and I work with whatever department that is to answer those RFP questions. And then he puts it out to bid, and then this meeting that we have annually is bringing the results back in. So he on the second or third page, he has the Utica package, what it covers. Because you might say, like, what's our deductible on something? And so these are the things that we do as part of this negotiation and getting our policies. Something on the fourth page to point out is automobile. So when we get to the end and I tell you what the difference is between last year's coverage and this year's coverage, it's actually a little bit different than that, because when we quoted this last year at this time and we did this same exercise, we did 117 vehicles. In this time of the year happening and buying the vans and the school buses, he actually quoted 128, but a lot of those were already added mid-year. So the number that the board approved last year actually was a higher number before we got there, because we added mid-year. The other thing I highlighted to make sure I tell, because this was new a few years ago, and I just want to make sure that all of our newer board members are aware of this, and any administrators that aren't aware of this. Utica, PTAs, PTOs, and other booster clubs, they will fall under our umbrella if the board approves them in the fall, which has been our practice. But there's a huge but with an asterisk. They have to obtain their own employee dishonesty bonds. The insurance carrier does not provide dishonesty bonds. The boosters, PBAs have to provide their own. And we shared that last year with the department head that rolls that stuff out to the PTOs. You're gonna see an increase in our main package, mainly because of inflation, adding the vehicles. Just overall, things cost more money, and it costs more money to insure us. On the next page, something I put stars by, and it's very, very, very important, and I just, Utica, the company that we're gonna recommend, for our package, kept our deductible at $10,000. I cannot stress how humongous that is. We had a time period where we had a lot of claims here as a district, and no company would quote us with anything under a $50,000 deductible. And what would happen is anytime we were engaged in litigation, that was the starting point. And that's a hard number to start at. So now, any litigation, our deductible, or the part the school's responsible for, is $10,000, and that cost us a lot of out-of-pocket money those years that we were unable to have that coverage. So I made a note, higher property values, inflation, vehicles, accidents, because we had a lot of new drivers. you know, we had a lot of accidents, it's just like having, you know, drivers in your home, and, so all of those things caused our premium to go from $517,461 last year when we quoted it, to, the best proposal being $534.34 this year. What made it not so bad, quite honestly, is workers' compensation, we get a mod, and it's based on 3 prior year look back. Our mod only moved very, very fractionally, higher. It went from 1.161 to 1.171, and what that means is anything over 1, we get a surcharge for, anything under 1, we get a credit. It's really hard at a district this size to ever be under 1. I don't think since I've been here we've ever been under 1, but we've been a lot higher than 1.171, and I think the safety committee that Tim chairs has really been vigilant about, you know, having our meetings and keeping those numbers down, because our workers' comp carrier, we had 5 companies bid, and we were able to get $231,004 of that, and that is really, that's actually a savings over last year. And payroll went up, so workers' comp is based on payroll totals. You do a fraction of that. Even with payroll going up, they were able to quote us a lesser amount. Now, the bad news about that recommendation is, it will require, HR and the safety committee to work with a different company, but it's honestly been a practice as long as I've been here. You go with the lowest bidder, and we move in and out of companies. It happens. Usually you see the next year, whoever got outbid will bid, you know, it's just a way to save money. But it helped our overall package. It went up $16,571. It would've went up a lot higher had we not had that savings in workers' comp. And 2 other things that the broker wanted me to make sure I mentioned is why Utica is another recommendation, is we had something really cool happen this year that's never happened before. Utica, our property coverage, who's also the recommendation for next year, put us in a group dividend plan. And in that plan, you can earn up to 15% if you've had a good experience. So we got 2 checks this year, and they totaled $37,000 that we got back as part of the dividend program. So that's money that we spent last year, you subtract $37,000, so Utica will put us in that same plan again next year. That was, now it's a group plan, so it's not just Canon-Mac, it's the overall plan, but we've never been in that. Workers' comp, when I started here, used to have that, but over the years, workers' comp claims have just been so off the chart. There's no, you know, globally, there's just that, they don't have those kind of dividend packages anymore. Couple other quick things just to mention, in case you don't know about our insurance, and like, there's tons of insurance information, I'm like doing it way super fast. But you're gonna see on the page where it talks about flood insurance, that 1 North Jefferson Avenue is excluded and has a, different coverage amount, and it's because we're in a floodplain. And so if anybody didn't know that, that's why we don't have as much coverage there for that. We were able to have coverage for the wind damage, but that was in a different category. So I think I hit the high points. If anyone has any questions between now and you're making a decision to go with a recommendation next week, please reach out. If there's a lot of information in here, I tried to summarize outside of what's written for you to read. But that is it. That concludes my report.
So, Joni, that, the blanket property amount went up about close to $18,000.
Yeah.
Does
That's
that include any
inflation.
construction that's going on now?
No, it's
That's just
inflation.
our blanket that we had last year went up to 18,000.
And that is a direct reflection of inflation. The contents cost more, if we'd have to replace contents now, they would cost more money to replace them than they did when we bought them. We bought more vehicles, and so those are the things that caused it to go up. And they're
Well,
actually.
we're just talking about blanket property.
Yes. That's all of the
That
things
includes the
in all of our
buses, that
buildings.
includes the buses and everything?
That's the things in all of our buildings.
Can't include the buses.
Auto's an auto policy, but the blanket is all of the things that are in our buildings, and the things that we get reimbursed for once we pay our deductibles.
Yeah, it's not 18,000 bucks, it's 18 million.
Seems like an awful lot.
It's $18 million, well, all buses, all vans.
Well, and if you tie this back to one of the functions of the business office is we do fixed asset appraisals, and we actually have one coming up this summer. We use the fixed asset appraisals to do, it's a component of the annual financial reporting and the accounting that we do as a district. And our auditors look at that as well, so this all ties together, and so you'll see that in audit reports or in your financial reports as well, our fixed assets. But the value of things, when an estimator goes in, they've gone up because of the inflation of our economy. And you as school directors really have no control over that, nor do I.
So Liberty Mutual is almost twice the amount of the combined between a Code and Utica, and it's apples to apples.
It's apples to apples. And, you know, something we added, I didn't point this, I'm just trying to, things that we've added in the last couple of years that maybe new that other people may not be aware of, is we even added a crime policy, cyber crimes. That was an add last 2 years ago when we did, we have coverage now if we were to be, you know, have an invasion in that regard. It doesn't cover everything. And even though this lists so many things, I mean, we found this past year we had some litigation matters that weren't covered by insurance. So, you know, to get into the exclusions, I'd have to hand you the policy book, but this is a nice summary.
Any questions for Donna? Grace?
So even though the year is winding down, it's sometimes the busiest time of the year. Yesterday, we had professional development training across the district, but more importantly, it was kindergarten screening. So all our kindergarten students who did online registration came in face-to-face with their parents, and our numbers are pretty consistent with last year. So we're pretty steady.
370 or something.
Yeah, we're pretty steady. South Central's a little low. When I heard that South Central was below 70, they usually are at about 100, so we're missing some, but we always know that sometime in August, sometimes we can get up to 25 children just registering for South Central. So we continue to take screenings all summer long. You should have received an invitation to go to the WQED events at Wylandville Elementary School. By all means, every time you get those type of invitations, whether they're from Epic Builds or anything that they're doing in the schools, you're welcome to stop by those places and say hello. Make sure you go up to the principal, introduce yourself if they don't know who you are, and they can take you around. As a matter of fact, next Wednesday, here when you leave, there'll be a Title I Parent and Family Engagement event going on under the lights, it's called, of our stadium. And we did this 2 years ago with federal programs, Title I, but it rained. If there's a rain day, it's gonna be held at Muse Elementary. We're hoping for good weather, but right now my teachers have said that they have over 300 people that are gonna be here next Wednesday. So when you're done with the meeting, if you have a little energy, you can walk out there and see the parents and the kids. We have different stations set up for them. Our high school store actually made CM hats for each of the Title I students to be able to take home. They get reading books, but and our student athletes are there at night doing different things at each of the stations as well. So the football players will be reading with them, and I'm not sure what other sports teams they have that's going to be participating in Under the Lights. So please stop by.
When you come, there will be spaces with a cone. Those
Yes.
are for you. You can move them out of the way.
Yes, yes, we already sent that out. We're like, oh, that's.
I was just thinking that.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
With 300 people, the grass will already.
Yes, that's gonna be a difficult thing for parking. But, first time ever, because of ESSER's money, we decided to offer some paid professional development. So in my tenure in Canon-Mac, I don't think we've ever had a summer paid professional development for teachers to come back and learn some stuff. So this past year, we had 2 teachers that attended graduate level like classes it's called letters training, and they are now certified. So there's a thing called, teach the teacher, and so these teachers are now fully certified to take our teachers and to train them in letters, which is about how to teach a child to read and what's all the science behind reading and our brain and what parts of the brain process different things. I was kind of shocked. So these 2 teachers were like, yes, we'll do this training in the summertime. We're gonna use ESSER's money for that. However, I was shocked, 25 teachers signed up, and I think that's remarkable. And they're from all different levels. And so I'm hoping that that's something we might be able to continue on for, to continue professional development. I'm going to try to do the summer reading program again. I have 4 teachers, 4 to 6 teachers, heard back from 4, that are interested in doing summer reading in the summer, identifying the lowest performing. I wanted to do K&1, but because of the small numbers of teachers willing to teach, I'm gonna stay with kindergarten like I did last year, and we will actually house the classes at South Central rather than at 2 locations. And Mr. Mayor and I in the transportation department will work on getting the roster of kids. Last year we picked up every child in front of their door to get them to this summer reading, which is remarkable. We still didn't get as many as we wanted to. So we're gonna work on that. Hopefully we can grab 50 students for that. Later tonight, well, I can tell you now, I guess, there was 3 textbooks I was gonna have you, that were reviewed by teachers to have you consider approving. One of the textbooks is called American Political System. After getting a return phone call from the salesperson, I had to email the teacher and the principal saying I can't recommend this book because I was concerned at first it was a 2019 edition, you'll see on the board agenda. And I always give pause for you to adopt a textbook that's 2019. The teacher and I reached out to the publisher, they're not having a renewal. And so when I talked to the publisher today, they said, we have ebooks for you. And I said, well, how long are you gonna guarantee my ebook? And they only said for 1 year. So I'd like to remove that name from the agenda, and the teachers gonna have to go back and vet some more books. The trouble is, that course is the University of Pittsburgh's College in the High School course. So when we use College in the High School with University of Pittsburgh, they end up giving the teacher recommended texts that they want to use because they're given college credit. So we have to follow their itinerary, their agenda, and they usually give us books that they highly recommend. There were only 2 books. The other book the teacher found had a little bit too much bias to it. So we're going to go back to the drawing board on that. So we will remove that book from the agenda for you to approve next week. 2 other books, Ideas and Arguments. You're welcome to peruse them. I always try to leave them out for at least 2 weeks. This is an elective course, AP Language and Composition. A couple of years ago, last year, the board approved a temporary 1-year book that the teachers used as an e-book. She did not like that book after using it with the kids. She went back to some classes. All of these teachers have to sit through classes. She ended up deciding on this particular version. And then we have another elective class called University of Pittsburgh's Web Design. And this was the only book that the University of Pittsburgh recommended. However, I made the teacher review other textbooks, and she ended up, after reviewing 3 different ones, ended up saying that this one was best for the students. So those are the 3 books that you'll see tonight for review. Yes. And let me see, that is it. Any questions for me?
How did they come up with the name Ideas and Arguments versus Ideas in Discussion or Ideas in Debate?
So very good question. So argument is a style of writing. So there's compository writing where we just talk about facts. Then there's persuasive writing, which we call argumentative writing. We used to call argumentative writing. So that's a style of writing. So this is a specific advanced placement course about how to, what you're doing is teaching children to utilize evidence to make argument for it. And so there's all different, I cannot even tell you, like, all of the levels of argument, but so they're gonna learn it's a writing course. So they're gonna learn all different types of writing, but the hardest writing for people to do is to do arguments. So yes, it does sound a little confrontational, doesn't it? Yeah. So did anybody want me to pass these around? You looked at them the other day? Okay.
Any other questions from Rose? All right, Becky?
The 2 things that I have to mention are, the first one is the special education plan. It is on the agenda for your approval. It is for 2021 to 2024. It is timely, however, they extended the deadline for it and the submission to July 30th of this coming summer. So we just need to get that approved. And what that includes are, it addresses any of the areas of improvement under any of the 16 indicators of disproportionality. We do not have any flagged, so those are all, that was an easy part to complete. All you had to do was check a box. It also addresses the least restrictive environment. It looks at all of our out-of-district placements. It looks at teacher caseloads and the physical classroom spaces that are approved within our buildings. It takes a look at positive behavior support and professional development for those years. So you'll see that on there. The next thing is just to talk about is transition discoveries. So transition discoveries is something that we're working on with up at the high school. So transition, if you're not familiar with it, that's trying to prepare our students for their post-secondary life and what that will look like after college, and trying to set them up for as much success as possible. So we look at 3 areas for that. We look at education and training, we look at employment, and we look at independent living. So with that, the Transition Discoveries program that they're using up there is looking to fine-tune our transition program within our high school and make sure that we are preparing our kids. So it encompasses district services, community services, county services, and most of all, the biggest component is the family input through this process. So the district has a core team, and on that core team, we have special education administration, we have principals, we have IU1, TAC, we have teachers, and we have OVR. And then from there, there's also another team called the TCAT team. And that is families and made up of families, students, and parents. So they're looking to expand that. It is run by the parents and the students, and they do attend some of our transition meetings up at the high school for the transition discoveries. So the core team had to go through training, and it was a whole course description of like they had to work through these different lessons and be trained on different aspects of transition. And then they in turn trained the TCAT team. So they trained the families and the students and the parents. So with that, the TCAT team then creates their own meetings that they are holding separately, and they're trying to get more community involvement and agency involvement. And then it's just looking at using that input from parents and the school together to better enhance our transition processes rather than just the school deciding on, you know, what's best without that input. So that's the main part of it. They did reach out to a bunch of places in the community to gauge interest and have expanded upon that. They meet monthly to discuss the transition process and make sure that it's beneficial for our kids. So the way that it's broken up is into the first step of it basically was the discovery process. And with that, they wanted to look at what is working in our district currently and what are the pros within our transition process. And the things that they brought up, these are comments made by the families, were OVR involvement, a lot of job shadowing opportunities, getting services started. They think that there's good administrative support and good school board support. The next step was discussing the dreaming part of it, and that's what they would change if, you know, where we should move with this. So one of the ideas that they had was having families become more connected to each other and informed. So right now they're creating a goal on how to do that by engaging with more outside agencies and figuring out what platform they're going to help connect these families more. And they're looking currently to do a video and Padlet that would be interactive. That would be a way to supply information to any families. So the high school's doing a great job. Are any of you guys who are here, the teachers involved in our process now? They're doing a great job at looking at this and really trying to hone in and see where we can improve, because there's always room. That's it.
Is there any state subsidy involved
For transition discoveries?
in this program?
For transition discoveries, it's all just us meeting. There's no costs involved. They're just looking, and they get community support, but it's all through just trying to figure out how to better enhance the programs. And as of now, they're doing it all through non-incurred expenses. So it's just creating that filter in a way for information to be passed.
Good.
Any other questions for Becky? All right, thank you, Becky. All right, next week's meeting, we'll be looking for approval of the minutes of the branding committee, regular board meeting from April 25th, budget and finance committee meeting, policy committee, building and grounds, athletic committee, and agenda meeting. week's meeting. We also look for approvals on the financials, on the wage tax, treasurer's report, bills for ratification and approval, budgetary transfers, and depositories. And Michael, you're up.
Yeah, in addition to those financials, we'll ask the board to consider approval of the esports club, creating that club, and then we have a personnel sheet as presented. Mr. McCullough announced that, you know, we have a lot of work going on in staffing needs and what have you, and one of those items actually involves the sponsor for the esports club. And then following that, we actually have a grant. So you can see we created a club, now we have a sponsor perhaps, and then we have a grant from Marines Resources in the amount of $5,000, excuse me, to help support and grow the esports program. And as we do this time every year, we'll ask you to approve the high school diplomas item, indicating that the class of 2024